So amazing reports in the Sun newspaper today saying the HS2 high-speed rail line may not reach central London, or if it does get there, it might not get there until 2038. So the report says the government is considering changing the endpoint of the rail service. Instead of running from Manchester to London Euston, it could go from Manchester to Old Oak Common, which is a suburb of West London. And this is just another episode in a long list of delays, changes and barriers to the project. Originally, HS2 was meant to run from London to Birmingham, with branches to Leeds and Manchester. The rail link to Leeds, which is one bit of the sort of Y shape of the map, has now been scrapped, and the Birmingham to Manchester line might not open until 2040. A budget of £55.7 billion was originally set for the whole project. It's now gone way over 100. The government says it's committed to the service reaching Manchester, but being so over budget and over schedule, it's no surprise they may be looking at ways of trimming the cost and scale of HS2. And one way of doing it is to say, we'll stop short of the centre of London. I mustn't laugh. But I mean, this project has been up and down for so long. Maybe you think they've got to do it. You cut the costs, get it done, and we'll just have to muddle through. Or maybe you say, no, if it's this bad, cancel the whole thing. Do get in touch by texting 88291, email vine@bbc.co.uk with your phone number so we can get back to you. I'm going to talk in a moment to Mark Smith, who runs the rail travel website, The Man in Seat 61. But first, Lord Tony Berkeley joins us. He was deputy head of a UK government review into HS2. And you left the review because you felt at odds with the others. You didn't think it was a runner from quite a long time ago.
Well, there wasn't a runner because they hadn't produced the evidence of need or of costs. And so the cost-benefit analysis was ended up by being rubbish. And so I basically told them it shouldn't go ahead.
Well, I said 55 billion was the original budget and it's now gone over 100. You think it's gone to 160?
I think it's gone to near 160 billion on today's figures.
Crikey.
And that's, of course, before we allow for extra inflation, which we've got at the moment.
So presumably what's happened is the Transport Department have had a look and they've just got to cut costs. But this idea of not going all the way to the end point of Euston Station, London, what do you make of that?
Well, in one sense, it's good because they didn't have a scheme to get to Euston that could be built safely. So it wasn't possible. But the problem is that Old Oak Common doesn't have enough space for a terminal for all of HS2. It'd do fine for a commuter route to Birmingham or something, but it doesn't have enough space. And so you then think, well, if there's no place in London to have a terminal station for a high-speed line, what's the point of building it at all?
I don't know Old Oak Common, but I'm assuming everyone there has woken up and their properties are now basically have crashed.
Well, there's not many properties around Old Oak Common. It's on the Great Western Main Line into Paddington.
Right.
But they'd have to build a £7 billion station on the Great Western to link into the HS2 platforms. And they haven't got that in the budget. So they are in trouble with this, and there doesn't seem to be any solution.
Is it possible to say, OK, if you've got 160 billion, if you're prepared to spend it, this would have been a good thing to spend the money on?
It's the wrong project, because what the railways need and what people need in the regions, in the North and the Midlands, is some decent regional services, east-west in particular, to make the whole commuter area and commuter services as good there as they are in the southeast. We've got good ones in the southeast, but in east-west in Manchester to Leeds and Liverpool, it's rubbish, frankly.
Stay with us, Lord Berkeley, because Mark Smith is listening. You run the rail travel website, The Man in Seat 61. I gather you're a little bit more positive about HS2, Mark.
Well, I gather that the government has now confirmed that HS2 will go into Euston, and that's good. They've already cleared the space for the terminal at Euston. And of course, a key advantage of railways is that they go centre to centre, unlike domestic flights. So it certainly should go to Euston. Yeah, well, OK, that's Jeremy Hunt this morning reacting to the Sun newspaper story, which I was going to say. He said, look, it's wrong and it's going to go to Euston. I don't know, because Lord Berkeley here thinks it's almost impossible to build it to Euston, Lord Berkeley.
Well, I've been working on this for the last 10 years. There are two options for getting the tunnels into Euston, one of which has all the junctions of tunnels underneath the existing West Coast Main Line, which is quite risky, and they risk closing the whole station for a year or two. And the other one is to knock down all those walls on the west side as you go out of Euston and have all the tunnel changes under there. And there's a risk of those walls coming down and the lovely listed houses behind them falling down. They haven't got an approved scheme for getting into Euston. Let's be quite clear. There's nothing safe and approved, and until they do, one has to question it.
Mark Smith, does that worry you?
Well, it certainly doesn't sound too positive, but the route has been decided and should have taken that into account. And we do need a high-speed rail link that links to central London. We're actually not pioneering here, of course. We need to remember that France and Italy and Germany and Spain, even Morocco and Turkey now have high-speed rail links up and running, high-speed infrastructure between their major cities, and they've all been immensely successful.
Is the problem, Mark, though, that since this thing was basically invented, the idea was put on the table, we've all learnt that we're connected through laptops and phones and whatever. We can work on trains, and now people aren't thinking of train time as wasted time.
Well, people need to travel, and this isn't about saving time primarily. This is actually about capacity. You can think of HS2 as 2 extra tracks dedicated for fast intercity trains next to the existing West Coast Main Line, which links London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, Glasgow. It's a massive upgrade to Britain's busiest main line, and extra capacity means more reliability, and it also means cheaper fares if you've got lots of seats to sell.
And it's true, Lord Berkeley, at the moment the Avanti line is, by all accounts, in a shocking state, and this would run alongside.
It's in a shocking state because they're not running enough trains on it because they can't find the drivers to work or everything else. There's nothing wrong with the track. There's nothing wrong with the service if it's run correctly.
So you think if we get HS2, we may not have the drivers?
Well, if they recruit them and keep them and they sort out all their strikes, and that's a slightly separate issue. But the other thing that Mark made, which is very important, is that most high-speed lines he's mentioned use existing tracks to get into mainline stations in the centre of cities because it's such a hassle to build a new line into the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And we're the only people who've tried to get there at very high speed. I think the trains are going to be doing 60 miles an hour when they go into the platform.
Amazing. Would you cancel it then if you were in charge?
I would cancel it and put most of the money into east-west in the Midlands and the North to give them a decent railway service that they much more need than, frankly, getting to London half an hour quicker.
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Tony Berkeley, who was Deputy Head of a UK government review into HS2. Clark emails and says, surely the point of HS2 was to create a high-speed network that linked into the European network, allowing us to use high-speed trains rather than airlines. If they're considering making the reason for it even less useful by not even getting into central London, it would have been a waste of a good idea. And this Old Oak Common is, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 miles west of the centre. So you'd have to, if you were trying to get from Manchester to Euston in London, you would have to stop at Old Oak Common and get on a different train. But as I say, Jeremy Hunt has said, the Chancellor said, look, we are going ahead with it. But it's been so beset, hasn't it? Ken in Cleveland says all that money could have been used to upgrade the present system or even nationalise the railways. I'm from an area that Boris Johnson's government said would be electrified. But it seems HS2 will once again benefit the south rather than anywhere else. So Ken is in Cleveland. Let's talk to same neck of the woods, Tim in North Allerton. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, but your side of the country's really lost out here, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. We were going to get the link from, was it Leeds down to somewhere like Sheffield? And Leeds is, 50 miles from where I am. So we weren't going to get anything in the north east or northeast Yorkshire whatsoever.
Yeah, and it was strange the way that announcement happened, that they were saying, 1 minute they were saying it's going, imagine a letter Y and the left fork goes up to Manchester and the right fork goes up to Leeds, and then suddenly it was gone.
Yeah, I guess if they've gone over budget and they've run out of money, they've got to kind of cut costs, I suppose. HS2 is a lovely idea, it's a lovely concept, but we're not as big as France or Germany or as long as Japan, so we don't really need that kind of high-speed connectivity. What we need is capacity and more regular services. And I think if we'd have gone down that road to start with and If I think about where I am right now, the Trans-Pennine Link, that was electrified, then it's not, then we're going to do it from 2025. But you kind of think, well, are we ever going to see that?
Yeah, very good point. Thank you very much.
But
Stephen in
that's it,
Derbyshire says HS2 has been an expensive waste of money from the start. They should have spent the money improving existing infrastructure. Would have cost a lot less and made a much bigger difference. Chris in Driffield emails, many people told the government that HS2 was not a sensible use of taxpayers' money, as the price would probably be too expensive for us to use it. It would have been better spent connecting east to west in England, not London. So, Lucy in the Chilterns, I gather you're hopping mad hearing all this.
I am, Jeremy. I really am furious. I feel like I thought I was all out of my fury on protesting against HS2, but work's gone ahead. It's torn up my beautiful Chilterns village, it's ruined our countryside, it's knocked down buildings, it goes on and on and on. So now the protest is over. There's a mitigation action group just trying to make sure that we're just keeping on top of the noise impact, how it'll impact our water, our traffic, our environment, our whole community. And now HS2 might not even achieve what it set out to do.
I suppose the interesting one would be if Labour came in a year's time, let's say, and they have to be brutal on expensive things, and they just say, look, this was basically a Conservative thing, we're just going to cancel it all. Now you're left then with a great big scar running down your back garden, are you?
Oh, it's just, Jeremy, it's just been so awful, and it's been 10 years of just constant work that's gone towards this. I don't really know how I feel anymore. I felt so angry that it was happening in the first place, but I think it's been going on so long, I now would be too furious
if it stops.
It didn't go ahead. Yeah, now if it didn't go ahead, I feel like it would be for nothing.
But if it was really close to you, you would have had your house compulsory purchase, correct? So you must be, is it just beyond a third of a mile or something?
Yeah, I'm just outside of that.
Right.
And a lot of my community are. I just think the damage has already been done, and I think I don't know what the answer is to continue moving forward, just pumping money that apparently the government just seems to find here and there to just put towards this project. But it's already happened now. I'm sure we're past the point of no return. I can't have witnessed what I've seen for nothing.
Thank you, Lucy. All the best. Very stressful if you live near the route. Peter in Hay-on-Wye texts, HS2 not coming into central London will mean any alleged high-speed time savings will be lost. This is, of course, true because he says you'll have to change trains. When you get to the outskirts of London, you have to get on another train. HS2 needs rebranding to LS2, Low Speed 2. What an enormous waste of taxpayers' money at the worst possible time.